Go to the store, do some shopping. But anyway, so yeah, so I've got a story I got to tell you guys, and it's about this guy over here, Jimbo Wallace. And really, it's not just about him; it's about us. It's about our history, and it's a little bit about this whole thing about music. And please bear with me; it's kind of long. Okay, so here's the deal. We were playing the Midwestern region. So we were doing Dallas, Austin, Houston, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, all the way up to Milwaukee, Chicago. We were doing all this, but we'd never been to the West Coast. Well, a great country singer friend of mine named Dale Watson. Everybody well, Dale and his girlfriend had moved out to the West Coast. They were doing really well out there, and Dale's girlfriend, who was a friend of mine too, she called me up and she goes, "You got to let me book you some gigs on the West Coast." And so we said, "Great," you know. So we blocked off a few weeks and said, "Okay, go." And then as that transpired, there was a guy that we knew in Dallas that had moved to Seattle, and he got wind of this whole tour thing, and he called me up and he said, "Dude," he was a dude, man. He said, "Dude, as long as you're on the West Coast, you gotta let me book you some gigs in Seattle." And so we thought that was pretty cool, you know, because, you know, hey, okay, that all fits together. So we blocked off another little week for him. And anyway, the tour started, and I figured I'd better call this guy, see how it's going. I called him on the phone, and he said, oh, dude, yeah, you probably do have some gigs in Seattle. That was a little less than I was hoping for, but okay. So I gave it a few days, and I called him back. And he said, "Oh, dude, you probably do have a gig in Seattle." So I was realizing this guy was full of shit. You know, but anyway, so at that point, we were young and dumb, and so I was like thinking about, we're on the West Coast, just shoot up to see. Well, I realized this is before cell phones, I looked at the Mapsco and figured out that, oh God, it's as far to drive back to Dallas as it is to drive to Seattle from where we were at. So I figured out, doing the math, that if we drove to Seattle and didn't have a gig, that we would lose money on the whole thing. So at that point, I had to take it to Jimbo, my wonderful bass player, Jimbo. And I said, "Jimbo, what do we do?" And he said, "Let's go to Seattle." Okay, so we went, and we somehow managed to get a gig in Portland, Oregon, and he even booked us in the Bay Area, San Francisco region. So we were pretty set up to get up there, but we were driving to Seattle. He wasn't answering his phone. So we just drove up there, and we went to his apartment because we had his address, and we knocked on the door, and some big redheaded dude answered the door, and we asked him, and he said, "No, he's not here. He skipped out owing all of us about $1,000 in back rent. He pretty much owes everybody in Seattle money. If you know where he is, we'd like to know too." And we said, "Can we stay here?" And they actually let us stay there on there. We spent 3 nights on their living room floor.
Yes, sir.
About the second night, we were actually there longer than that, but the second afternoon or third, he comes in. He was a bartender. He's somewhat well connected. He said, "Okay, here's the deal." He goes, "They can't pay you any money, but the Vogue Theater's going to have a show, kind of a big showcase thing on Saturday night, and they think it's going to end early, and they're going to throw you guys up at the very end. They can't pay you anything. They may not have time to throw you up at the end, but they may have plenty of time. Oh, who knows?" So, okay, so sure enough, the band quit early. It was a packed house of sweaty rock and roll people. And we won them over really easily. It was a jam, baby, okay? It was going good. And I looked up at the people, and they were smiling and having fun, and we were playing the song Psychobilly Freakout. Going along, and I looked up, and all of a sudden nobody was smiling. Everybody was looking at Jimbo with this look on their face. They all said, "Jimbo!" one of his bass strings was broken and all loosey-goosey on his bass. And he was still slapping his bass, but there was blood everywhere. Probably in time with his heartbeat. Like a war show. And what had happened is he had broken his bass string, and I guess in the heat of battle, he decided to get it out of his way. He just ripped it off with his bare hand, and it just gashed his finger down to the bone. There was a lot of blood, and I was getting a little queasy. You heard the song Psychobilly Freak Out. We just did it a minute ago. It has breaks, and then it's psychobilly, we start playing it, right? And so I got in my mind to go, okay, when we hit this break, we got to stop because Jimbo's going to bleed to death. So we hit the break, and I kind of walked a little bit closer to him. I said, man, are you okay? And he grabbed his bass, and he brought his bass right up to he kind of ignored me. He brought his bass right up to the center of the stage and planted it like a flag. And then he held up his right hand that was covered with glistening red blood. And he made a cross on his face in blood like this. Then he just looked at me and said, go. So I said, it's a psychobilly freak out, and we kept playing. And the crowd went wild, but the two owners of the famous record label Sub Pop Records were in the front row, and we got a record deal. And Jimbo didn't bleed to death. Not that much applause for that. Anyways, from movie Fabulous in Deer Park, Texas, let's hear for Nature Boy, Jimbo.